Okay, so today on the Live on Form podcast, we are joined by Adam Moran, aka Beard Meets Food. How are you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I love doing the AKAs. The last one we had on was Diamond Dallas Page. So it was, but unfortunately, he's got to the point where his AKA is literally just how he's known now. So do people
Yeah,
refer to you as Beard Meets Food now?
it's weird. I usually get Mr. Beard a lot, which I quite like. Like if people see me in the supermarket or something, they'll be like, "Oh, Mr. Beard." Oh, I'll just kind of turn around and be like, "Yeah, that's me." So not everyone knows my real name. So you're
So
at least well researched, Phil.
are there days when you think I quite fancy shaving my beard off, and then think I can't?
No, I mean a lot of people ask me that because on April Fool's Day, which is not long past, I photoshopped a picture so it looked
Yes,
like
saw
I
that.
had no beard, and a lot of people are like, most people knew it was fake, but a lot of people are like, oh, I can't believe you shaved your beard, and I'm thinking, I would, even if I wanted to, which I don't think I really could now. It's kind of on brand. I think clean shaven meets food doesn't really have the same ring to it, so yeah.
So it's a very, very well cultured beard. Is that many years of development?
I mean, it's been growing a lot. It's all over the place now. I try and make it look as tidy as possible for you, Phil, but no barbers, right? And I don't trust myself to trim my mustache or my beard, so I've not really had it trimmed for a good few months now. But
Yeah, the
I'm
whole
already
barber
booked
thing.
in.
I've got headphones here holding down my over ear kind of hang here. So it's been an interesting time, certainly on the grooming front. But yours is it's a fascinating kind of story. And obviously, we talk about health and we talk about fitness and we talk about well-being and we talk about all these different things and we talk about human performance. And obviously, you have your own version of human performance, which is being, phenomenally good at something which pushes the human limits, which is why it's fascinating. But it's very anti what we kind of encourage. It's this kind of this binge eating thing, and this, you're almost encouraging something that we try and divert people away from. But it's a fascinating world, something that I've watched, and I think a lot of people will have, right? Because it's entertaining, right? Everybody's watched Adam, the guy on TV. I
Oh,
can't remember.
from Man v Food,
Yes,
Adam Richmond. I know what you
Adam
mean. Yeah.
Richmond. Yeah, and then obviously of late he got himself in great shape. Then he lost loads of weight and blah blah blah. So it's an interesting story. So rather than me tell you what I know about this story, why don't you tell us where it all started?
Right. I'll try to be as concise as possible. So, what I do first of all is I suppose I don't like the word famous. I suppose I'm most well known for being a YouTube entertainer, right? In that I create videos with the purpose of making people laugh, or just be entertained, and that normally revolves around eating lots of food. So yeah, you can think of it like that show Man v Food that was on TV years ago, like that, but way better than that. And yeah, the way I got into it really is that I've always been, believe it or not, really into kind of health and fitness, to give it, I guess, a catch-all term, since my early 20s. And I did a really long, I don't like to say to use the word diet, but I did a really long extended fat loss phase in probably I was about 27, right before I started this whole mad eating thing. And yeah, just because I've always been kind of goal orientated, and I just wanted to get as lean, as possible, just for kicks. So I spent this almost a year pretty much under eating. And when I was done with it, I got to like ridiculously low levels of body fat for a natural guy anyway. And yeah, my girlfriend, my fiance now, girlfriend at the time, she said to me, she's like, right, now you're done with that, I've seen this food challenge, right, at a restaurant that was in York. It doesn't exist now, but you had to eat like 12 burgers, a pound of fries, and 2 pints of milkshake. And she said, for a treat, let's go there this weekend. You love eating your food, that can be your, your cheat meal, if you will. So I went down there, and only like one person I think had done it before out of hundreds of people, and I managed to do it. And you got like a free meal T-shirt, 30 quid, I think, and a spot on this wall of fame. And I just really enjoyed it, and I thought I did a few more just casually. And then my brother-in-law, he said to me, "Oh, you should start a YouTube channel." And I'd not really watched much, and you mentioned Furious Pete when we were discussing between us at the beginning of the conversation. I'd not really seen much of that, and I just did it as a laugh, just to kind of document what I was doing, show my friends and family and stuff. And it kind of snowballed from there. And, I started creating more professional content. It's now my full-time job, but kind of hand in hand with that, when the fact that I realized that these contests exist, like real elite level competitive contests where you could compete against people, for in front of thousands of people, by the way, in the crowd, eating all kinds of stuff to win money and prizes. And I've always been really competitive, and I used to play a lot of football. And I stopped playing that around the same time, my late 20s. So it kind of filled the void of, I thought, maybe I'll go out there and try my hand at this competitive eating thing. And that's where I'm at now.
And turned out you were, is it genetics? Is it something you, obviously you train for this, right? I've seen conversations with various other people where there are methods, right? There are ways that you train for this.
Yeah, there are. I mean, when we're talking about, forget the videos, right, for a second, where I'm sat down in a restaurant just eating a lot of food to win a free t-shirt or something like that. That's just for the sake of entertainment. And for that, to me, I've always followed what I guess people would call an intermittent fasting protocol. I've always eaten one meal a day since my early 20s, believe it or not. Okay. So I think that's where I don't think it's so much genetic. There is a genetic component to it, but it's more the fact that, for nearly 15 years of my life, I've eaten one meal a day. So naturally I'm going to have more stomach capacity than you, for example, Phil, because you're spreading your meals out throughout the day. And whatever you think about that, that's, I think, that gave me a predisposition towards being able to eat a lot of food. And then, when I got into doing contests, that's really when training kind of is a necessity to do well at these contests. But I'm a notoriously lazy trainer. So a lot of the time I get by on, I suppose, to some degree, natural ability. But that's probably why I'm ranked 11th in the world rather than, one in the world. But still, I think 11th in the world isn't bad, to be 11th best. Even something as wacky as eating, I think is pretty cool. So
hey, look, from what I've seen, it's a massive thing, right? Because there's actually a major league eating. So obviously there's MLB, Major League Baseball, there's the NBA, there's blah blah blah. There's actually a major league eating, federation as such, right? And a international federation of competitive eating, right?
Yeah, those are essentially, they fall under the same umbrella. They're owned by the International Federation of Competitive Eating was the original name, and that was then kind of swallowed by a larger company called MLE, Major League Eating, which, like you say, is like NFL or NBA, which I know sounds ridiculous, but yeah, they kind of govern the sport of competitive eating. They arrange all the contests. Like I say, in a normal season, there would be, I don't know, 40 maybe. Maybe a shade less depending on numerous factors, but yeah, they govern it. And you actually, to compete in these events, you have to sign a contract with them, which is fun. You sign a 3-year contract, you give up all your image rights in North America and wacky stuff like that. So yeah, it's a big deal out there, and the contests vary in size depending on again, prize money and stuff like that. But yeah, you go from things like Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest, which is probably the most famous. Maybe that's the one that some of the British people might know of, because that's actually on ESPN in America. It was on BT Sport the last year I did it, 2019, on TV.
Yeah. And
you've got 35,000 people in the crowd there watching people eat hot dogs, which is just, to me, that experience was just wild, And that's like, I'm from Leeds, right? Ellen Road, where Leeds United play, that doesn't get to 35,000 capacity some weekends, and that's watching a real sport, So you get all these people watching you eat hot dogs, and there are some smaller events, but typically you're getting, a couple of thousand in the crowd at most. So yeah, it's mad to think that actually exists out there, but I'm glad it does.
So you tour and travel around the world doing this, and I guess that all funded by prize money and your YouTube channel and sponsors and things like this?
Yeah, again, it depends on what you're doing. But I'm kind of I suppose a unique case in some ways, in that most of their competitors are they're Americans, right? There are, I think, 3 or 4 of us who are international competitors. So it costs us more, for example, to fly out to events. But yeah, normal. So 2019 was the last season, and in that year, I think I competed at 8 events, and so the bigger ones, like Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest, as I mentioned, that I got flown out to do that, and you're accommodated and stuff like that. But the smaller ones, you have to basically pay your own way, and you're hoping that you at least land in the. I'm one of those eaters, I think, who I'm basically aiming for top 3 to 4 in a contest if I can, because I know it's going to pay out. So when I did the World Oyster Eating Championships, I came third, and I won, I think, like $800 for that. So that kind of about covered the flight, I think. But yeah, a lot of it's self-funded, and I'm not really in it for, you know, the money per se. I earn enough, thankfully, from my YouTube channel that I can fund a little bit of fun, and that's what the contests are for me. I'm just there to compete and try and do well, put on a show and stuff like that.
And what are we talking prize money? So Nathan's, right? What is somebody who wins Nathan's hot dog eating competition? What do they take home?
Well, Joey Chestnut's won it for I think the last 4 years now. And I think last year's was maybe $15,000.
Okay.
I think, but then you get in add-ons there. I think they'll have stuff like you get additional. I think he gets bonuses, basically a little bit like a footballer would, for, you know, like how many goals they score,
how quick, and how many hot dogs he eats.
How many hot dogs he eats, you know, because there's and the thing with Joey is somebody like, I mean, Joey literally is, forget YouTube, right? His job is winning these contests. So he's got more at stake than I have. He's got his own range of sauces in, you know, in supermarkets and stuff in America, because he's so well known for this hot dog contest. But yeah, the big contest at Nathan's is, I think, 10 to 15,000 quid. That's just for first place. The prize, the actual purse, is way bigger, because second place still wins a lot. I think they win like eight grand, and then maybe third place 5 grand, you know. But some of the smaller contests, it's more typically maybe $3,000 for first place, and then, you know, it goes down. But yeah, it really depends on the sponsor of the event, and, you know, how big the event is more than anything.
So for you, once you've hit your flights and your accommodation and things like this, it's more like you kind of get your trip paid for as such, right? If you do well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're decent, if you're a draw, right? So if I think for me, it's kind of a novelty for them to have a British guy, you know, doing it.
Yeah.
To be honest, so they treat me quite well. They don't pay for me to go out to every contest, but if there are something like Nathan's, for example, yeah, if you have to qualify for that, to be honest. But if you do, they'll cover the flights and stuff. But some of the smaller ones, it's not really something they can cost, because they're already putting a lot of money into the event. So like I said, I'm there just for. I'll go on my own dime, and a lot of contests I lose money. Like I did terrible at the I did this contest in LA, the World Gyoza Eating Contest, which is like a little kind of a fried dumpling thing, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And the worst part about that is I flew out like 4 days in advance of the contest, just because the flights worked out better. But because I was there, I was thinking, right, I'll make content for my channel, right? So I'd done all these wacky food challenges, like I did this giant ice cream sundae and a 30-inch pizza. To me, overeating day after day after day, I just cannot do it. So normally I will eat a lot, and then I'll fast for days, you know, I'll barely eat anything. But yeah, because of that, when it came to the contest on the 4th day or whatever it was, I just didn't want to eat. So I did terrible. And so, I mean, that cost me about 2,000 quid to fly out there and accommodation. And I didn't win anything for at the event. So that's worst case scenario. But generally, I'm at least breaking even if I perform well.
Well, and from what I gather, you were a banker, right?
Yeah, I used to work. I like that you said banker. You don't want to mess that up. Yeah, I used to work for a stockbroker. So I worked for Lloyd's, actually, the bank, their stockbroking department. I used to manage a team of people who would just place trades on the stock exchange. So if you wanted to buy some shares, Phil, you would call one of the people in my team and say, "Let me buy, you know, X amount of shares in a company. I don't know, Barclays or whatever." And they would do it, and I used to manage that team. But I hated that job so much. It was. I still remember to this day the conversation I had when I realized, because I had started my YouTube channel, like I say, as a hobby, and there was a month I realized I was making more money from my YouTube channel than I was from my real job. So, and I remember we had just bought a house, not this house I'm in right now, but me and my fiance, we just bought a house, and I can remember coming home to her and I said, "Darling, I think I'm gonna quit my job and just go all in on this YouTube thing." And she's like, "What?" But yeah, I mean, it panned out in the end. So yeah, I was a banker. Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's you know, I remember a conversation I had with Dad years ago, and he was like, you know, there's that definition of proper jobs, right? So you've gone from a proper job to something that most people are going to regard as, you know, it's a wild card, right? And obviously only you knew at the time how well the YouTube was going and how confident you were in it and whether it had longevity and legs and blah blah blah. But yeah, bold move, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was scary at the time, because I mean, I'm under no illusions, right? You get a lot of people who are, because I'm not the only person doing this, right? Especially with the whole YouTube angle. you get a lot of people I think who are lost in it, and they're like, oh, this is great, I'm making this amount of money, so I'm just going to do this. But you have to have an end game, right? You have to know that there's a finite shelf life to everything, and there's no security there. I suppose it's like being self-employed in any industry, but it's just far more, I suppose, insecure. But I think there are opportunities in life that only come along, once in a lifetime. Worst case scenario, if my YouTube channel is deleted tomorrow or YouTube doesn't exist, I like to think at least I'm bright enough to get another job doing something else. And I've had a great journey over the last, 6 years or whatever it's been. So it was scary, but I'm glad I did it for sure.
That's brilliant. Do something you love, right? And food is something many people have. Now, the whole world of competitive eating, it just fascinates me, right? I think the first person that kind of drew my attention to was Takera Kobayashi. I think I've pronounced that right. Takera Kobayashi.
Yeah, we got in the industry, people just call him Kobe because it's easier.
Kobe, yeah. So he's even named after a food, right? It's. I always remember seeing these images of him, right? And he's quite a slight guy in many respects, and he'd finished these competitions. The hot dog eating competition, I think, was the image that I remember seeing first, and he'd just have this bloated sort of six pack. Because this is the fascinating thing about this competitive eating. Now, you see the rosters and you see these lineups of them. There's, Joey Chestnut, you mentioned, right? Joey Chestnut, you're ranked number 1 in the UK, right? So you're the top UK competitive eater. He's like the world champion for however many years. Matthew Stoney, Peter Shavinsky, Furious Pete, who I know through the kind of fitness and health industry, he was always popping about. Carmen Chiconti, I think it is.
Chiconti, yeah.
And you look at the lineups at these competitions, and for a place that, and this is predominantly all in America, right? Most of these competitions, I'm assuming,
mostly,
are right? These big, massive food chains, and I remember going to loads of American food places where there's always a competition. There's always something on the wall where you can win a T-shirt or whatever it might be. Or bills paid if you finish whatever it might be, and it's a big thing, right? And the man meets food or Man Meets Food. I'm getting confused with you. Man versus
Man food. Yeah.
Man v Food was a big thing, and I remember watching that and all these things. But you see these lineups of people at these competitions, and given that I think the statistics in America now, 70+% of all Americans are classed as overweight or obese. Yeah. But you look at the lineups at these competitive eating competitions, and nobody seems to be overweight, or very few of them. It's remarkable, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, that's one of the things that I think I got a real buzz off in the first place when I would do these kind of restaurant things, where you win a free meal in England, was that I'd go in and because I still get that now, when it's weird because more people recognize me now when I walk in, but there are still places where they don't. And I'm like about 156 pounds. So I'm really not a big guy, 5'10", and they'll look at me like, well, there's no chance you're going to finish this, because they expect somebody who can eat a lot to be overweight. And when I think of the roster you mentioned there, of the top 20 eaters in the world, I can think of maybe 20th place is a guy called Badlands Booker, Eric Booker, who's been around since basically the Major League Eating existed, from the early, late mid-90s maybe. And I'm good friends with him, so I'm sure he won't mind me saying he's what most people think of when they think of a competitive eater. He's ostensibly overweight, really nice guy, but he's the guy that is the one guy you look at and you think, that's what a competitive eater should look like. But he's 20th in the world, and when you look certainly at the top 10, top 15, most people have got into this, in my opinion anyway, because they have some kind of athletic background, whether there's a guy called Ronnie Hartman, who's a professional wrestler. Say what you like about wrestling, it takes you got to have a great physique, you got to have a lot of strength to do it. Yeah. You got like you say, Joey Chestnut, he's not, you wouldn't look at him and think, he's certainly not a bodybuilder or anything like that, but he did a show in America called it was basically, there was a show in England where Ewan McGregor went on a motorbike and the cameras followed him from
long way around. I think it was
like that, but Joey Chestnut did that essentially, but walking, right? So he did this walking show. He went hiking, and he's always, when I see him at contests, he's always talking about training. So he keeps himself in shape. Matt Stoney, I know, is big into cardio, and everyone. There's a guy called Nick Wary who's he's not a professional bodybuilder, but he competes in I suppose local level contests and stuff like that. So everyone there, Sarah Reinecke, I think she's into martial arts, and a guy called Derek Jacobs, they're all into something which has an athletic component to it, you know? So I mean, to compete well, you need to be fit to some degree. And a lot of people don't really understand that. Go, it's just eating. But when you're eating at that level, there is a huge fitness component to it, which plays a part. So typically, the fitter you are, the better you're going to do. I know if Joey Chestnut tomorrow just let himself go and he wasn't taking care of his body, he would not be as good. So yeah, it's weird to think when you see people on stage that everyone's in pretty good nick.
Which is wild, isn't it? I mean, we could get into calories argument and blah blah blah, but obviously the point you pointed out that intermittent fasting is kind of just something you've done for most of your life, right? You eat one meal a day.
Yeah,
so ultimately, I would imagine what you just over 2,000 calories is probably good for you maintaining weight, right?
I'm reasonably active, so for me, before I got into all this.
Do you count calories?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Because that's the equation for me. That's the key factor. But to me, I need more than that. I mean, I'm really pretty active, so I'm about to stay the same weight now. If I stop this whole eating thing and I just ate one meal a day, I'll probably eat about 2,700 calories.
Right.
Because I'm
which is a good meal, especially if you're trying to get that from what we deem as kind of healthy foods or nutritionally dense food. That's a hell of a lot of food, right?
Exactly. And that's a lot of people when they talk about, how do you get into this? I used to specifically try and, I mean, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables anyway. I mean, for health reasons, but to me, I've always been attracted to, high fiber, nutrient dense, low calorie food. So I would eat, back in the day, I would eat like a huge bowl of salad. I'm talking like full of lettuce, beetroot, cucumbers, just a bunch of salad with some chicken thrown in there. And I would specifically, because I love to eat, so I would just eat lots of, low calorie foods, which are, we think of as, like you say, healthy foods. And I think that's what kind of developed my ability to eat in the first place, because you're eating low calorie foods, you can eat a lot of them,
and it's volume, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing if you're eating 2,700 calories worth of what we deem as, again, nutritionally dense foods, right? So nutritionally dense foods, classically, they're very satiating, so they're going to fill you up because they're going to expand in your stomach. They're full of fiber. They've got loads of nutrients, blah, blah, blah. So obviously a way to train for this, I guess, is if you were to eat 2,000, and I'm trying to picture this in my head, and I remember doing you've done, fitness and dieted and blah, blah, blah. And I remember one of the hardest diets I ever did was actually a diet with the intention of getting bigger. And I remember, I had to consume, I think it was about 6,000 calories a day I was meant to be consuming. But I classically tried to consume it from the foods that I knew were good, right? So I was eating potatoes, steak, vegetables and all these things. And it was impossible. It was literally got to the point where the first couple of days, and like you were saying before, it kind of stacks up. First couple of days, fine, not a problem. But day 3, day 4, I'd finished my first meal, which was like, and I was having sweet potatoes and rice and blah, blah, blah. And I get to the end of my first meal. And then by the time my second meal came around, I was like, I'm still full here. And I was splitting this up, and it was horrendous. It was awful. And I last longer on huge calorie deficits, put it that way.
Yeah.
People go, and what I ended up doing was I took all the ingredients that I had throughout the day and I used to whack them in this whopping great stew. And that was the only way I could consume it. I literally put it through in the slow cooker long enough that it literally turned into mush. So it was like this big, thick, fat soup, but it had rice in it, had a beef in it, had chicken in it, and I just used to throw everything in there, a bit of stock, done, and would shovel it down my throat all day. And it was horrendous. And I lasted about 5 days. And it was just extreme that I wanted to experience. And again, like, I'm guessing that along the way that there's extremes that you want to experience, right? You want to sort of culture yourself to do them. But when I think about it, I'm like, if there was a way to train myself to consume vast amounts of calories of the non-nutritionally dense food, which is typically what the competitions revolve around, right?
Yeah.
What better way to do it than to eat really good food in large quantities in one sitting, right?
It's really the only way you can do it, because I mean, I was actually about to say we'd all love to eat 10 pounds of burgers every day of the week, but actually I wouldn't. I'd hate to do that. So yeah, I mean, the only way you can do it and maintain because I mean, you've got to have a level head. You don't want to put your health seriously at risk. So I mean, the only way you can do it is to eat large quantities of low calorie, something like lettuce. I think was about 12 calories per 100 grams. So imagine how many kilos of lettuce you could get through. And actually, a lot of the old school competitive eaters. I know a guy called Pat Bertoletti, who used to be second best competitive eater in the world. He's retired now, but he used to train for contests by eating watermelon. So he would literally get like 12 pounds of watermelon, line it up on the table and just eat it as quick as he could. And it's really, after that, I don't know how many calories.
The fluid content on that must be like, what's watermelon, like 80-90% water?
Yeah, it's
so
the majority of that.
Yeah.
Is water. But the people do that. I mean, we mentioned Kobayashi. He used to train, I think, with grapes, which I thought was a bit of an odd one. Maybe something to do with learning how to swallow more kind of odd shapes of food or whatever that don't break down easily. I don't know, but a lot of people use fruit and vegetables and stuff like that to build the foundation, which is essentially a large stomach capacity, right? And then once you've got that, then all the other things like speed, technique, then they come into play afterwards.
So what? Take me through some of these techniques. Explain them. The grape thing actually reminded me of back in my rugby days. Is I always remember, I'm sure this may be something you've done, is trying to drink a pint in shots. So a pint of lager or beer in shots, and it's horrendous.
I've never tried that.
So difficult because I think it's the air and the volume, and you literally just do each one of them as a shot. And I remember it was like this competition, and everybody's looking at it going, that's going to be so easy. And then nobody could do it. And I can't remember whether it was a pint or multiples of pints or whatever it might be, but it was horrendous. It was like trying to do little shots of them. So maybe the great thing, there's something in there. Anyway, so what are the methods? Tell me some of these training methods.
It's so multifaceted. A lot of people look at it and just think eating, right? But there's so much. So the first thing you need to do is, like I said, you have to have a foundation of a large stomach capacity, right? That comes with years, like, for example, like me, I mean, I've eaten one meal a day since I was in my early 20s. And then when I got into doing actual contests, I would sit down maybe once or twice a week, let's say, and I would just eat as much as I could of a large, like I used to make large salads, as I mentioned. So once that's down pat, and you've kind of been doing that years, you gradually, I mean, your stomach is elastic, right? Its whole evolutionary purpose is that depending on where you are in the world, in the Western world, we have lots of high calorie, low volume things available to us. If you, for example, were living like a nomad and you were kind of farming your own crops and stuff, you would need to eat more food. So that's why your stomach could stretch, right? So we've just kind of got to a level whereby it's normal for the stomach to stretch to a large size and then shrink back to the size of a fist. That's point A, right? You can't compete professionally if you can't do that. And most people can't do that, right? Most people don't want to do that because it's not always a lot of people enjoy the feeling of being, satiated, being satisfied, full. A lot of people don't, right? So I suppose that could come down to a genetic component. After that, then it comes down to stuff like working on jaw strength and jaw endurance, which is an odd one. If you've not seen it, you should watch. There's a documentary called The Good, the Bad, and the Hungry, which was I think it was an ESPN documentary about Joey Chestnut and Kobe, with their rivalry back in the early 2010s, and you can see Joey waking up every morning. He's got one of these. I don't know if you've ever seen. It's like a ball that you put in your mouth and you chew on it. I don't know what the purpose of them is outside eating.
I think it's meant to define your jawline or something, isn't it? It's like a weight training thing for you.
I've got no problem with that. But he'd be chewing on this and he would attach a weight to the end. And I'm thinking, what is he doing there? Most competitive eaters will go into a contest, for example. I would get a stack of chewing gum, and I would just empty the whole stack of chewing gum, put it in my mouth, and chew it for hours at a time. And I would do that for weeks leading up to a contest, in the same way that you would train anything. Because if you're up on stage eating something which is chewy, especially for 10 minutes, that will, you have to be able to continually chew for 10 minutes. So that's a way of training that. Things like technique, a lot of the things that people find fun are, I've done a couple of demos and stuff like that, are eating chicken wings, for example. Yeah. So a chicken wing contest, most people with good to average appetites could compete well at them because it's so much down to technique. So you would you know, you're not just putting food in your mouth. You're taking time at the contest to strip the meat off the bone, for example, and do it safely. So there are techniques to do that. Like you learn how to umbrella. They call it the umbrella technique. Take meat off a chicken wing by twisting it and pushing it. And there's all these little things. The hot dog contest. It's disgusting. You take it. Nobody eats the hot dog like maybe you would eat a hot dog at, you know, a barbecue with your friends at the weekend. They're not just enjoying it with a bit of sauce on there. We're taking the sausage out of the bun, dunking the bun in water, all to get these ludicrous numbers. So it's all a question of building that technique at the same time as, you know, having a biomechanical ability to actually eat the food, I suppose.
It's crazy. And from what I got, you're a qualified personal trainer as well, right?
Yeah, but I think you and me both know, Phil, how easy it is to get that qualification. Yeah. But yeah, I like I said, I've been really interested in. You might not think it's a look at me, and most people just think I'm a skinny dude. So oftentimes I think, you know, your kind of reputation, what you're interested in, is preceded by the way you look. So people might think, oh, personal trainer, he's just like a skinny guy. But I've always been super interested in. I mean, everything that goes into strength, performance, you know, energy turnover in the human body, nutrition, stuff like that. So just for a laugh, really, I think I used to work the job at the bank, right? And I hated it. The only hobbies I would play football, and I'm into music and stuff like that. But I thought, you know, why don't I just get qualified as a personal trainer just for a laugh? You know, it's easy to do. So yeah, I do have that reps level 3 or whatever they call it now. Yeah.
You don't see yourself having a foray into the personal training world now, though?
No, I think to me, I'm not sure that I would have the patience. Probably the same reason I didn't get into teaching. At university, I did a degree in English literature, and then I did a master's in 20th century fiction, because the view was, I was thinking, well, I mean, what can I do? Maybe I could be a teacher. And then I remember just thinking at the time, my dad actually, he's sadly not with us now, but at the time he said, son, he said, you don't have the patience for teaching. So I think my issue would be, you know, trying to help it, which is why I've listened to some of your podcasts and stuff before, because I find it quite interesting how, as a personal trainer, I think what sets you apart probably as a personal trainer is not the way you look, how much you bench or whatever, it's how well you can cope with, you know, training people, you know, because it's not as easy as just saying, well, you're not working hard enough, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. So yeah, but I think I would find it quite hard to deal with people that don't perhaps have the same discipline that I have. So that maybe down the line, I don't know. But I like the idea of helping people.
Well, hopefully things go well. You'll never need that fallback. But is that merchandise? I see. Is that a Beard Meats Food cup?
No, this was sent to me. It's, I think it's from Beard Oil Company, but it says Beard Fuel.
Is that merchandise a spot in the background? I'm assuming there is a merchandising section to Beard Meats Food franchise. Whatever.
I do sell T-shirts, but I really just for the buzz of seeing people wearing them. That's what I mean. I don't make a great. I do it via something called Teespring, so you make about £2 commission on every shirt sale. But yeah, I'd love to see, especially if I'm at a contest or whatever, and I'll see people in the crowd with my T-shirt, and I'm just like, that's mind blowing. So yeah, that's the reason I do it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So eating challenges. What's been the worst?
To me, spicy things are the hardest. So I typically tend to avoid them because they're really like their own separate discipline, you know, doing things that are really hot. But I once did this thing called the Tube of Terror, which is basically a tube of nuts, which they're spiced. They're essentially coated in a spice, which is like 13 million Scovilles, which I think is like 3 times hotter than police pepper spray. And I had done maybe a few similar heat before, which were quite small. Like I did the world's hottest chocolate bar, which was I think about the same, maybe 12 or 11. But it was a small piece, so it was unpleasant. But I thought I can deal with it. This was a tube full of nuts, and I got about halfway through. I think the video is still on my channel. It's a really old one.
When you say a tube, are we talking like a Smarties tube, or are we talking?
Similar to a tube Smarties. So
like
it's probably got
like a normal serving of nuts.
Yeah, not a lot, but I mean, maybe 20 to 30 nuts in there, but they're all ridiculously hot. And I remember that's the only time I think ever in the course of doing this whole thing that I've genuinely thought, oh man, I might need to call an ambulance here, because I was eating this thing and it wasn't, I mean, the heat was just punishing. It was horrible. But the most scary thing was I started to I couldn't hear anything. There was just this constant ringing in my ears, and my left arm started to tingle like it was going numb. And I'm thinking, oh my, I'm having a stroke here or something. But it was just the sheer impact of, you know, the the spice in it that really just your body can't deal with. And I don't like spicy food anyway. So things that
it can be lethal, right? I'm right in thinking that you know, like ghost chilies and things like that, they can be lethal, right? If somebody
yeah, they could. I mean, if you don't have if you don't have the constitution, like I know there was a story. I forget the name of the place, but there was a place in the northeast somewhere of England. They were doing the hottest chicken wings or whatever, and you had to sign a disclaimer. And a guy actually had to. He was hospitalized because it reacted poorly with his stomach lining or something like that. And so they can be dangerous, but it's rare, especially if you know what you're doing. I mean, but yeah, I mean, hot things I really don't like. But in addition to that, other things that are really difficult. I once did 13 pints of Ben and Jerry's ice cream, which is something which was stupid on the surface just because of the amount of sugar involved. But things like that, things that are high in sugar, which your pancreas is going to have a hard time dealing with, they're quite bad. But typically, yeah, spicy things are the worst.
So the ice cream is, when you say it's bad, what are we talking? I mean, I did a food. The last food challenge I did was at the, what was it called? The Red restaurant over in Hoxton. I can't remember what it was called, but basically it was a burger that was stacked up like this, and you had to do the fries, you had to do the coleslaw, and you had to do a milkshake, and it was literally a time thing. I did it in like 8 minutes 20 seconds. And I remember sitting around watching everybody else. I remember we're sitting around watching everybody else eat for the next like half an hour, just sat there feeling horrendous, like awful, like fine when you just finish it, but like a minute later or 2 minutes later, I was like, this is too much. And I didn't realize that you could order any drink, and I ordered the peanut butter and banana milkshake because I'm an idiot. But I remember, and that level of discomfort. So, I mean, how do you deal with that? Do you have a strategy? Do you delay down? What do you do?
I think for me, I've been at it. I'm old hat at this. I've been at it so long now that something which you would typically find in a restaurant. I mean, I'm not bragging when I say that it's very. I mean, I don't remember the last time I couldn't finish one of these food challenges in a restaurant. So to me, they're typically around £6. Maybe the biggest ones in England are around maybe £7 of food at most. And to put that in perspective, at the World Poutine Eating Championship 2019, I ate like 16 pounds of poutine, which is cheese chips and gravy, basically. Yeah.
It's a northern dish they stole. I was like, I always remember people saying to me, chips, cheese, and gravy. I'm like, you mad? Because no, you can get that every chippy up north.
Yeah. But it's the national dish of Canada as well right now. So that's where it was. And so that was 16 pounds. So, I mean, and after that, I felt dreadful. Don't get me wrong. But typically when it's a restaurant, I'll feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to go out and, do a run or anything like that. So I'll typically just sit on the couch if I'm at home anyway, or I'll make my way home, sit on the couch and just drink water, because that's the key thing. You want to be drinking as much as you can afterwards, because typically you're going to be eating meals high in salt, things like burgers or barbecue, fried chicken, whatever it might be. They're just heavy on the salt. So you want to balance that out as much as you can with water, and make sure that the next day it's, you're not going to get bunged up, and without getting too graphic, that it's going to come out of you. So that's how I deal with it. It's more tricky with things. The reason I mentioned the ice cream is that is always going to make you feel terrible. If you eat that much sugar, it's just, I mean, your body knows I'm not one of these people say sugar is toxic. It's not. It's just a refined type of carbohydrates, a good source of energy for your body. But if you're eating, hundreds of grams of sugar, in one sitting, there's no way you can get away from the fact that you're going to feel dreadful afterwards. And it's not the fact that you feel necessarily uncomfortable. You just feel that huge sugar crash, from having eaten lots of sugar, and now your body's trying to return to normal, and everyone knows what that feels like. Just imagine that, but it's like a terrible hangover, but tenfold. So that's one reason I tend to avoid doing things like that. I mean, occasionally it's a necessity. There's a world strawberry cake eating championship, which I actually love doing. But when you're going into that, you're thinking, oh my Lord, like I'm going to go back to the hotel room and I'm going to feel...
Strawberry cake eating championship. I didn't even think I don't think I've ever had a strawberry cake. I've had a strawberry.
They call it strawberry shortcake. And I think it's like a New York, the contest happens in Long Island, which, is just that offshoot from New York. I think it's kind of they call it shortcake. So when I was doing the contest, I'm thinking where I'm from, shortcake is like shortbread, like crispy.
Yeah. Like yeah.
But to them, it's just imagine just like a vanilla sponge cake with a little bit of cream on top, strawberry,
Oh, like
and
a
that's all it
Victoria
is. So
sponge kind of thing.
yeah, like a strawberry sponge cake. That's what we would call it
Yeah.
here. But yeah, that's easy to eat. The contest is good, but you know you're gonna have to eat a lot of it to do well, and B, afterwards you're gonna be. I'll be in a hotel and I'll be thinking, oh man, this is horrible. Like, I'll just be sat there feeling like awful. And actually, the year I did when I did that in 2019, I had to do a second contest the day after to qualify for the hot dog contest we mentioned, because that one you don't just sign up for because you with Major League Eating. You have to actually win a contest to be there. So that was terrible. I thought I don't know how I managed to win it, because I'd eaten like 11 pounds of strawberry cake the day before. But yeah, goes with the territory, I suppose.
Man, it's a crazy world. And I believe that you were sponsored, or you were like a food tester for a restaurant in Yorkshire, right?
I was quite briefly, but I was on retainer. I used to do some of their social media work. I did for them, took some pictures for them and stuff like that, and I would, you know, yeah, part of that was actually quite fun for the amount of time I just got to test food for the restaurant. Yeah, I did work for them for a period. Yeah,
and then it showed your stomach or something, hadn't they? Or is that
yeah, I think that was I never saw the paperwork
PR
that way, but I think that was something they fed to the media, and the media just kind of lapped up for that story. But yeah, I never saw that. I'm not sure what the premiums would have been on that policy.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you qualify with that. I mean, you hear of celebrities, insuring the bum and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, insuring your stomach and your taste buds or whatever it might be. But
yeah,
be crazy. So obviously we've deduced the kind of intermittent fasting stuff, right? I've seen pictures of you absolutely shredded, like lean as hell, and obviously you're not, you're walking around. I don't think I've ever seen a picture of you where you look like you're out of shape by any means, and you always lean. So what is the exercise regime that sits over there? And obviously you said you monitor calories, 2,700 calories a day. If you're only eating one meal a day, I'm like, you could probably have a bit of fun at that meal and still be okay, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I suppose I would preface this answer by saying that this is not something I would recommend to people, right? But my theory, by and large, is that I tend to think of, a lot of people think of how many calories can I eat per day, whereas I tend to think of how many calories can I eat per week. And we could get into the minutiae, of elevated metabolic activity when you overeat, and metabolic suppression when you undereat for long periods of time. But to me, the simplest way to explain it to people is that I need, roughly speaking, 21,000 calories a week to stay the same weight, a bit less, right?
Yep.
So I'm very rarely ever eating, we mentioned 2,700 calories a day. That would be how I ate if I stopped this whole competitive eating thing. So typically a week for me will look like, let's say on a Monday, maybe I eat 10,000 calories because I'm doing something stupid for a video. The next day I might eat 500 calories, or we could even say Monday, 10,000 calories, and maybe Thursday I'm booked in at a restaurant to do a food challenge at a restaurant. They're typically lower in calories, maybe 6,000, which is still, as we know, far too many.
Yeah.
So
Christmas Day.
If I've eaten 10,000 calories on a Monday, I've eaten 6,000 calories on a Thursday. That leaves how many calories for the remainder of the week to make sure that I'm scientifically unable to gain weight? About 1,000 a day. That's a very simple example. And again, we're avoiding all the minute thermic effects of food, things like that. But typically, if I don't eat more than 21,000 calories a week, there's no way scientifically I can gain weight. There's no surplus of energy. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend people eat like that, because especially the worst thing is not so much the days of overeating. The worst thing is if I've eaten, when I mentioned the trip to LA to you at the beginning of the conversation, when I came back from that, having overeaten for 5 days, I didn't eat anything for 2 days. So I'm quite comfortable with, if it's necessary to sustain what I'm doing right now in terms of competitive eating and whatever food challenges I do for my channel, I can go without food for a long, long time. So if it's necessary that I have to do that, I do it. So obviously, when it comes to balancing that with an exercise regime as well, especially when it's one geared towards, to some degree, getting stronger or maintaining a practical level of strength. Obviously, those days when you're not eating much, especially if it's 3 days in a row of under eating, on that third day, your performance is not going to be good. So it's not certainly not optimal. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but that's essentially the way it works for me.
Yeah, I mean, when when I used to deal with clients an awful lot, it was, I always used to tally things up by the week. It might not be the way I would translate to them, but ultimately, people would always follow this kind of 5 and 2 model of, I'll control 5 days and then I'll go crazy on 2. Now, as we know, it's very easy to surpass that 2 in a crazy way and go way over your numbers, very, very easily. Whereas what you've got there is you've got almost this structure where you have this freedom. And this is this whole argument that came from bodybuilding, right? People used to say, oh, you got to eat like 5-6 times a day. I said, the problem is if you eat 5 or 6 times a day, each meal has got to be pretty clean with respect to the type of food because the numbers are quite low. You take that number that's divided by 6 and divided by 3, all of a sudden you got a bit of freedom. You can eat a chocolate bar and you can fit that in somehow and you can, have that. And what you've done is there you've gone, well, I've got that exceptional freedom if I want, because ultimately I could do a meal for 2,700 calories if I wanted and I'm okay, but I don't see the point doing that every day. So what I'm going to do is I can fit in fundamentally what's your income and your business and your job. I can put all that in and have this wonderful time with food. And I guess to some degree, do you get bored of food?
Oh yeah, mate. I mean, there are times to me that what gets me up in the morning. A lot of people think I'm I mean, I love to eat. Don't get me wrong. I love food. Who doesn't, right? But I'm really not one of these. I'm not waking up every day thinking, what am I gonna, oh, I can't wait to eat something, or this and that. And I don't get me wrong. The way I got into this is because I enjoy food and I like to eat a lot. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not. I mean, I more often than not, I enjoy the days when I'm not eating junk. Then I enjoy, what gets me up in the morning is the fact that I'm going to make a video which I know is going to entertain people. It's circumstantial that what I'm doing there is I'm eating a lot of food, and I'm talking about the food. It's not the fact that I really want to eat this food, So to me, it's hard to explain, but oftentimes I enjoy more the days when I'm not filming a daft video. I'm just enjoying my food. I'm eating something which is nutrient dense, and I'm not so poor in the kitchen. I think that's where a lot of people fall down. I'm not so bad with. I don't eat a lot of cooked food. I eat a lot of salads, vegetables, fruits, non-fat dairy, stuff like that, cottage cheese. But I'm not so bad in the kitchen that I don't know how to make that taste good. So I often find it quite difficult to understand when people say, "Oh, I hate just eating clean all the time." It's like, well, I mean, that's probably because you're terrible in the kitchen. You're cooking, you're listening to those men's health articles or whatever it is that say, oh, you got to eat boiled chicken and asparagus every 2 hours. Like, you can be creative. There's nothing wrong with it. A bit of sauce here and there and things like that. So,
but that's a lacking skill, right? I think, I talk about this an awful lot in that it's a generational thing. Is that most people have well, your generation particularly, they don't know how to cook. They've never been taught. They've never acquired those skills. They've never had that ability. So then when it comes down to dieting, or somebody gets into their 40s and they want to lose a bit of weight, all of a sudden it becomes, right, I basically just got to make things as boring as hell and I'll achieve this. But we all know that's non-sustainable. And without going off on a tangent talking about weight loss and blah, 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 which isn't really the topic of conversation, it's an interesting narrative and an interesting to see that you have this massive overarching discipline. Now, when anybody looks at it, you can go, yeah, but he just eats for a living and eats these copious amounts of foods for a living. But when listening to it, and anybody who's listening to this will be starting to realize that, hold on, this is a hugely disciplined thing that you've got to do, because there's plan, there's structure, there's all these different things. And ultimately just letting it go and just eating loads all the time doesn't really do it. It's not going to serve you any purpose. You're not going to get very good at what you're making your living out of, right?
Yeah, precisely. I mean, it's on the surface, it's an extreme, right? Of course, it's an extreme. But what makes me, I mean, the amount of messages, emails, comments I get from people saying, "How are you not dead yet?" Or how come you're not overweight? Or yeah, he just eats for a living. I realize on the surface it's a freak show, right? It's a stupid thing to do, but there is especially given that, I mean, I'm not going to be doing this when I'm 60 years old. I'm having fun right now, and I know I have enough knowledge to know how to do it in a way which does not adversely impact my health. And what people don't realize is that, they'll see these videos and say, "Oh, you're eating all this food all the time. It's great." I can guarantee, I know absolutely nobody with the same amount of self-discipline and willpower that I have, right? And that's not like a brag. It's just something I've always kind of had intrinsically within my character. So when people say to me, "How do you not get fat?" I say, well, so if I eat X amount today. I'm not going to eat tomorrow. I'm going to eat nothing, absolutely nothing all day. They'll say, no, BS. I don't believe you. I'll say, well, why are you asking me then? To me, hunger is it's like a paper cut or a headache or a scratch on my heel. It's the amount of time a human could go without eating. And I think they would have adverse effects, but you're not going to die from not eating. So from fasting a day is not, back in the Paleolithic, we weren't eating, every 2 hours of the day. You eat when you can get it. So
Yeah.
it's a self-discipline, ability to control your own impulses and think, well, yeah, I'd love to eat this today or that today. It's just an extreme. A lot of people can't even control, my fiance, bless her. Last night I remember she said, I'm starving. She sat down on the couch. She's got a terrible diet, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen it on my videos, but she ate like four big bread baps smothered in butter and a can of Coke. And I said, it's 9 o'clock at night. What are you planning on a heavy night's sleep? Is it going to be a rough night or something? And she'd eaten 3 hours ago. And I think maybe there's something in my head that's not quite right, that I can go so long without food and most people can't. But yeah, it's just a discipline thing, I think.
So how does it affect other people? So I'm thinking like social, right? So you're going out for a meal with people. Obviously that can be fitted in, but ultimately, your fiance, right? How does, let's say you're having a day where you're just not eating, does that have any negative effects on your lifestyle or the people around you, the people you surround yourself with?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's much the same as when you mentioned the pictures that you'd seen where I'm quite lean. Very similar to that point in my life where, my family would say, oh, we're going out for a meal today. And it's not that you can't go, right? But you're going to go, that maybe your friends and family are going to be having a few beers or have dessert, and you'll sit there and think, right, well, I should probably bring my scales to weigh out this chicken breast and make sure they've grilled it and not fried it, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's similar to that now. Simply the case that, I mean, Lindsay understands it's a job, right? If I don't do it, then I said, I could have a little bit of cheat. I could eat like a normal person today, in addition to filming all my videos. But I'm going to balloon up and be overweight, and compromise my health. So yeah, it's difficult at times, but I think trade-off in life, right? It's the same as if you're coaching people that want to get really, really lean, or people that want to compete on stage or whatever it might be. It's just a sacrifice, And I think there are things you can do, especially these days. It's far better at restaurants, I think, currently than it was a decade ago, where you've at least got some idea of the caloric content of things if you really pour an eyeball in food and stuff like that. And there are menu options. Like if I were to go out later today, I've not eaten yet today, and Lindsay says to me, I want to go out for some food if we could. She'd go to Frankie and Benny's or something like that, and I'd get a couple of grilled chicken breasts, or I love seafood, so I'd get some tuna or something like that, and just a salad. And
does the local Frankie and Benny's worry when you walk in?
It's funny that you should say that, because I filmed a video one time there where they were doing, a lot of people tweeted me, they told me that they were, Frankie and Benny's, they were doing like a unlimited chicken nuggets for some reason. I don't know why at Frankie and Benny's, it's not really that kind of place.
Or like a tenner or something.
Yeah, I think it was like $9.95 or something like that. And I thought this will be a great video. People love it. So I'm sat there, and this poor chef, I think this chef she was a lady. She was pregnant too. And I felt so bad. I just kept saying, more nuggets. And I ended up eating, God knows, over 100 nuggets. So yeah, they know me well there now. So it's quite rare that I would eat it somewhere like Frankie and Benny's.
So are there places in America where you walk in and people are like, oh my God, because it's like all you can eat buffets, right? Because they did the TV show, didn't they, on all you can eat buffets, and the business and the kind of, I'm going to say science. It's not science. The kind of the business behind it and the financials and the blah 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 is that it's all based on how much weight of food somebody can consume, right? And it's
sorry, go.
It's all precisely thought out, right?
I did. Sorry, go.
And when you see it all, it's like, it's a really good money-making scheme in many respects. It's a really good business, because the vast majority of people are never going to get anywhere near that. So again, you're going to tell me, aren't you?
I did a TV show for Channel 4 one time, which was called something like was it called the 2 million calorie buffet? And the whole purpose of it was to explore, like you say, the kind of financial, economical structure of these companies and how they make money. And it was slightly tongue in cheek, you know, it wasn't a deadpan. It was supposed to be a bit funny. And the idea was to try and figure out how many plates at your average all-you-can-eat buffet a person needs to eat, so that restaurant essentially loses
That
money
might
on
be
that.
the same show. So
Probably,
you
yeah.
were on
I
the
was
show?
in. Yeah, I was in that. It was in that show, and they had all the. I mean, they had rugby players, had an American football team.
Yes,
but
it was
the
that
same one.
show. Yes,
I came on right at the end, so you might have missed me. But yeah, they were saying, oh yeah, how many can eat? So a regular family, let's say the dad of the family eats 4 plates maybe, and then they had this rugby team in, and they can eat 7 plates. And then they had this guy, funny guy, he was a guy called George. And before the show, we were in like the kind of meeting area, and he had an idea of who I was. He said, "Oh, you're in trouble here, Mr. Beard." He said, "I'm gonna do at least 10 plates." I said, "All right, George, good luck." And I was last filming, and they said to me, they said, "Right, they paid me quite well for the show, unfortunately, but they said, right, you just eat as much as you can from these plates. Try and make each plate about, half a pound, let's say, of food, because you get small plates at buffets, right? That's part of the grift." Yeah, I ended up eating 21 plates, and that's only because I think they'd started to close up. Basically, there's nobody left there. I said I could keep going if you want. I said no, I think because this George bloke had done, I think he'd done 9 or 10, and I ended up doing 21, and it wasn't that much of a stretch. But yeah, it was funny that they worked out in the end. I think it was something like you'd have to eat 11 plates of food to actually make the restaurant lose money, which most people aren't going to get anywhere close to. So. Yeah, but I'm not a big fan of buffets. I typically tend to not eat at them if I can help it.
Yeah, no, I haven't been to one for a long time. We used to favor them when we were students. It was like a Sunday afternoon thing. There was an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet. I remember it, near the university, and everybody used to be like. And I think when it first opened, it was actually pretty good, and then it just gradually goes. So I think they acquire their customers with half decent food, and then progressively they just start trimming it back a little. Let's take a bit of chicken out of that, and let's take a little bit out of this. Let's get some breaded stuff there, and blah blah blah. So I think it just gets worse and worse and worse. So obviously 2020 has been a bit of a write-off, right? Competition-wise and things like this, and we touched on this earlier. But what's it looking like for next year? You think once everything's opened up again, is there noise around the major league eating and this?
Yeah, I mean, they've just actually. It's funny you should mention that, because they just sent us all the competitors a newsletter this morning saying there's a pepperoni roll eating contest in which is basically just like a hot pocket, like a pizza pocket.
Yeah.
Which is in May, and they've just put out, said, if you want to do the contest, register, and then by ranking you get selected depending on how many places they have at the contest to compete. So I've not registered for that one because May is that's next month. I can't see in my mind when we'll be able to travel internationally currently, but I'm hoping that end of this year, certainly next year, it'll be back on. We'll be back to competing as normal, because for me that's the thing that kind of keeps the fire going. It might sound a bit daft, but I mean I love shooting my videos. That's my bread and butter. That entertains people. That's why I love doing, having some fun with it. But I've still got that kind of that urge to compete at something, and I kind of liken. It's funny that people they kind of think, oh, well, how can you be enthusiastic about competitive eating? And to me, it's like if you woke up tomorrow, Phil, and you realize you're really good at something nobody cares about. So let's say you woke up tomorrow and you're like, I'm really good at lacrosse, or I'm really good at, I don't know, tiddlywinks or chess or something.
Yeah.
You realize nobody cares about it, but you would probably think, if you're a competitive person, you think, well, let's see how well I can do. How far can I go to compete? And I think I've already when I joined Major League Eating, I thought I would be last at every contest, because most people think I'm a slow eater, and compared to a lot of these guys. But I placed in the money at almost every contest. First British guy to qualify for Nathan's, on American soil. 6th highest rookie year number of hot dogs and things like that. Beat Matt Stoney as well. That's one that I like to mention a lot, because a lot of people love Matt Stoney. So
what was that one? What was that one you mentioned there?
Beating Matt Stoney.
Oh, beating Matt Stoney. Oh, yeah. He's a big deal, is he, Matt Stoney?
Yeah, to me, he's like that's like going into, I don't know, joining the PGA Tour or something and beating Tiger Woods on your first, in your first round. So
did you beat him in? What was the competition?
It was poutine, the one that I mentioned a little bit earlier.
Okay, right.
A big reason I won that is because there's almost no technique to put. It's just sloppy chips, cheese, and gravy as well. I'm a northern boy, so that probably gave me an advantage. But I mention that a lot because Matt's, like second best, second ranked eater in the world, I think, or third maybe. And he's one of the greats of all time. He won, one of the guys that won Nathan's. And a big motivator for me is I love people telling me I can't do something. So when I join Major League and I get all the internet trolls saying, "Oh, you'll never beat Matt. You'll never beat Matt." So to do that in a contest was just a real buzz for me. So it's just a part of my life that I like. I like to be slightly good at something and to try and put a bit of everything into it to be as good as you can, even if it's something daft. To me, that's a big thing.
So who's on your radar? Who's the man you want to beat?
I'd love to beat Joey at a contest, Joey Chestnut, because he's like, he's the poster child for competitive eating. I'd love to beat Kobe one day if he's pretty much stopped competing now. But he was, I mean, he's a legend. That guy, you mentioned like his physique and stuff. I mean, to kind of cross over a bit into more of the thing that you would normally discuss. I mean, that guy was an animal. He was deadlifting whatever 220 kilos at about my body weight and all kinds of stuff. So he was in great shape. But I mean, I would just like to. My original plan with Major League Eating was you sign a 3-year contract. So my idea was to first year go in there, learn a bit about how to eat on stage, because it's totally different to, you eating in a restaurant or something like that. Second year, give it a bit more. Third year, really go all out and see if I can win a couple of events. But to me, I'm a little bit, I don't know if you follow tennis, but people often say to me like, "Oh, you're not ambitious enough. You don't try it. You don't practice as much as." I'm a little bit like there's a tennis player called Nick Kyrgios who I love, and whenever he's interviewed by the media, people say to him like, "Do you think you could ever win a slam, Nick? Because you're really talented." And he'll just say, "No, I don't think so." It's like, isn't that a bit defeatist? He says, "Well, no, because I don't have what it takes." Like Roger Djokovic, Nadal. I don't have what it takes to put in, every day, every hour, every waking hour into tennis. And it's the same with me, only for eating, because eating is not a transferable skill. It's ludicrous for me to get up every morning like Joey and think, "Oh, I need to train my jaw today, or I need to do this, or I need to do that." So I try to get by on natural ability, but I try to get better. So if I can compete again next year or late this year, I'll still be trying my best.
And I think, I think there's that added bonus of, your personality. You come across very well. Obviously, you're very well read. You're a very intelligent man, and I think all those things are assets, aren't they? When it comes to, how do you make a living out of something, anything, right? But however bizarre and offbeat or wacky it might seem to other people, ultimately you've carved a living out of something that again, I think you've referred to numerous times as wacky and a bit crazy and blah blah blah. But ultimately, people love food, right? Food's always going to be omnipresent everywhere, and these competitions, I think, just get more and more extreme. And I think there's 35,000 people watching. I think there must be some kind of interest in them. So
it's funny to me that it's not necessarily. A lot of people think, "Oh, it's gross. Why don't we have that in Britain? Why is it just an American thing?" And I think on the surface, ostensibly, it is a grotesque thing to watch people, especially the way we eat at contests. I mean, especially if you have a beard as well.
I was going to say, especially a man with a beard, I might.
Yeah, but they are to me. If I ever get a chance to watch a contest, like a few of them are televised, not just Nathan's. There'll be, so if I ever get a chance to watch, or there's a stream like on the internet or something, I love to watch them because I think 10 minutes people just competing at something which is everyone relates to it at some level. Everyone eats, right? So to me, it's a fun spectator. I'm not going to call it a sport, but it's a fun spectator
competition.
Spectacle, let's say. It's good for people to watch, and I suppose it's just like anything in life, any kind of sport or performance. You can excel at it whether or not people agree that it's the right thing to do or they want to watch it. But to me, it's funny. I would make comparisons a lot of the time to darts, because people say, "Wow, competitive eating is not a sport," and I'm like, I'm not going to be the guy that tries to convince you it is. It's just a competitive endeavor to me. But if we say that darts is a sport, if we say snooker is a sport, then competitive eating for sure is a sport, because I'll tell you which one takes more fitness, even just the act of eating for 10 minutes. I would rather be throwing, I'm terrible at darts, but I would rather be throwing arrows at a cork board than sat there, trying to not choke to death for 10 minutes. So, so it's funny how people attach value to things, no inherent value to me in, I don't know, throwing a hoop at basketball or sticking the ball between the net at footy. Then they're no more valuable than eating 70 hot dogs or whatever Joey ate last year. But yeah, that's a societal thing, I suppose.
but it's entertainment, right? You know, it's entertaining. You know, darts is entertaining. You know, even though you know, watching someone actually play darts is pretty boring. You know, it's a bit like, I always go back to cricket, right? You know, and I'm sure you've been to Headingley, right? You know, you go to Headingley cricket, you don't really pay that much attention to the cricket, but it's a great day out. You know, it's like going to the darts. Going to the darts is a great day out. Going to the competitive eating world championship, probably a great day out. I went to the World Lumberjack Championships, you know, in Ketchikan in Alaska, and it was incredible. Did I watch much of it, and was much of it that interesting to me? Probably not, but the atmosphere was phenomenal. It was nuts. But it's a really fascinating and interesting area, and you know, to speak to someone about it, you know, firsthand, and to have that experience, but also somebody who can get across the level of discipline that's there, the level of, you know, almost you know, fitness, like you say. You know, you've got to be in shape for it. You clearly look after yourself. Do you get bloods done? Do you get health checks and things fairly regularly?
Typically, usually quarterly, if I can. Sometimes a little bit less. Maybe let's call it half yearly. But last year, because I mean, I would normally get it at Bupa or something like that. You know, like where you can essentially pay for it. But I mean, I didn't chance it with the whole COVID thing last year. I still feel reasonably good.
And is it something you do consciously because of what you do, or would you do it anyways?
Oh no, just because of what I do. I think, to me, I can't really stress enough the how disciplined and how aware you need to be of, because a lot of people probably look at what I'm doing and what we do and think, oh, that's just some YOLO guy, you know, frat boy mentality, thinks he can live forever, you know, but yeah, if you're eating like this, regardless of the fact that, you know, you keeping control of your weight, you never know what eating like this reasonably regularly, even if it's once a week, could do to you potentially long term. Nobody's studied it, right? So it's just smart, I would say. I know if I feel good or if I'm going to be unhealthy, but it's smart to me to get regular bloods done to make sure there's nothing that you maybe can't notice. I had a period actually last year where I was waking up in the morning, I feel just generally feeling really tired, and I'm thinking, well, that could be a number of things. So I think it's just insurance, right? It's just good sense, and a lot of people probably don't take the same precautions. But yeah, to me, I'm not going to put myself in the grave doing this. You know, I don't want my headstone to read, you know, died because he was a competitive eater. So you've got to be level-headed, and there's a finite amount of time you can do it. Like anything, I would compare it sometimes to like UFC or something like that. You know, I mean, it's not healthy to get elbowed in the head, but people do it for a period of time in their life because they're passionate about it. They want to be good at it. And then, you know, they can do it as best they can with doctors on hand. It's the same as that, you know, it's just being sensible, I say.
So how does exercise look for you? You know, what are you into? What's your vice when it comes to training? Are you a cyclist? Do you do CrossFit? What do you do?
Like in terms of like, people are always asking me, oh, do you do like tons and tons of like high intensity cardio? Like, I hate cardio. I mean, I love to walk. But I hate the idea of, you know, getting on a treadmill and running or something like that. So I walk a lot. This morning, I've been out for 2 hours walking on a bit of a hike. But typically, what you wouldn't think it's to look at me, because I'm not, you know, I'm not jacked up. But I do a lot of weight training. That's what I love to do, you know. And I'm not one of these guys that, I'm not a bodybuilder or anything like that, right? I never have been. I've always wanted to be in good shape. But the older I get, the more I kind of focus on functional and increasing my practical levels of strength, you know. I know it's funny because a lot of people if you'll find people having conversations with me on Twitter and they'll say, hey, what do you recommend for this? Or what exercise do you do for that? And then other people chime in and be like, oh, why are you asking him? You know, he's a skinny dude. But like, I mean, right before lockdown, right now I'm training with a busted half power rack in my garage and about 140 kilos of weight, some specialist bars. I've got a safety squat bar and stuff like that. But yeah, but right before lockdown, I mean, a weight of essentially about 69 kilos. I was overhead pressing 70 kilos, which is not bad, you know. I deadlifted 175 kilos at that weight. So to me, I mean, though I don't want to get heavier, you know. I don't want to be one of these guys that says, yeah, I'm going to go on a bulk, bro, and get huge and strong. And I'm just into getting very slowly, very progressively stronger, being practically, you know, being healthy and of practical use. So to me, I just do really functional stuff, compound movements, you know, rows, chin-ups, bench, squat, things like that. But I'm not that great at them. You know, I'm just better than that average person walking down the street, and that's all I'm motivated to be, I suppose.
Well, I think you're very humble on a lot of levels. I think there's certain things there you're not giving yourself credit for. I think you know, I've seen plenty of pictures of you to know that you're in very good shape for anybody really. So, and I think
Yeah,
nowadays
that was before lockdown.
was it? Oh, you've got lockdown belly now, have you? It's
Got a little bit soft here.
It's but yeah, it's fascinating world, fascinating story, Adam, and it's something that I think we could talk in multiples of angles and go down loads of different rabbit holes about. But it's great to get that insight into what you do and how you do it, and how you then look at health and how you overlay everything else. But a hugely disciplined thing to be doing. So obviously YouTube's super popular. How many people on your YouTube at the moment?
I think it's about just less than 1.4 million subscribers. I think
That's unreal.
Between 1.3 and 1.4, something like that.
Just casual. Around about 1.3, 1.4 million.
I've got my big gold plaque there. That's what you get when you get to 1 million.
Oh, is that's a YouTube plaque up there? Wow.
Yeah, it is,
yeah. So that's a big mantle, I believe. It's
they're actually pretty good. Those you get a silver one. Actually, I think you can see the silver one right there. That's when you hit 100,000 subscribers. That's basically like a frisbee. This one up here. Yeah. But this one actually is certainly not solid gold, but it's definitely more hefty. It feels like it's
definitely.
Slightly
What's the next one? What's the one after that?
I think the next one is 10 million. I don't think I'll ever get there, but if I do, I think it's is it platinum or something? You get like a little kind of diamond shaped thing, which again is not real diamonds, but yeah, it'd be cool to get that. I think I'm a bit old in the tooth though now. I'm coming up to 36. So I'm not sure how long the kids will think I'm cool for. We'll see. There's
life in the dog, yeah, I'm sure. What are the other competitive eaters going out at? Is there a retirement age for competitive eating?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I did the contest I mentioned to you, the Gyoza contest in LA 2019. There's a guy competing there called Richard. His nickname is the Locust Lefevre, and this guy is I think he's like 72. And he's still, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not going to win any contests, but he's still, oh man, he's so good. I'm like, how can you be eating like that at that age? And he still looks in great nick as well. I'd only met him the one time, and I'm like, Rich, don't take this, don't take any offense to this, but yeah, you look great for an old guy, but he's, I'm up every morning at like 5:30. I go out for like a 5-mile walk, and I'm like, wow, so there's no real retirement age. I mean, he's competing still pretty well. He can still win prize money on some of the West Coast contests, but yeah, I wouldn't want to be doing it at that age. I think I'd let my slippers, my pipe, and just eat like a normal person when I get to.
Kind of like a Yorkshireman now. My pipe and my Ovis.
I don't know about the pipe. I don't know what came to me, but yeah, that's what I'm imagining in my head. My rocking chair.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, where can people find you? Obviously, your YouTube channel is going to be fairly easy to find. I think it's Beard Meets Food, right?
Yeah, just type in Beard in Google, and I'll probably be one of the top. Or maybe third or fourth down on the list of searched things. But yeah, Beard Meets Food. Even if you spell it wrong but right but wrong, because I spell it wrong on purpose. It's like a bit of a pun. But yeah, if you spell it whichever way, you'll be able to find me.
Now, I've seen it spelled meat as in greetings, and then meat as in meat. So
yeah,
which one is actually the official one?
The meat is the official one, which is kind of like a play on words, I suppose, because I eat lots of meat. But yeah, I won't hold it against people if they spell it correctly. Meat as in MEET.
And Instagram, I think, is the same, isn't it? Beard Meets Food.
Yeah, they're all the same. I don't post much on Instagram, and I don't even have the blue tick on Twitter either, which is bugging me. I've got it on Instagram, but not Twitter. You can find same thing on everything, Facebook.
Yeah, but your main channel, obviously YouTube, right?
Yeah, that's where you'll find most of my my stuff with the reasonably good production value and stuff.
How many videos have you done?
I don't actually know. To tell you the truth, I couldn't tell you top of it.
You edit them all, and you edit them and do the body stuff.
One-man band. So that's another thing when you come back to people saying, all he does is just eat. Like, eating's the easy thing. It's spending 40 hours a week editing videos and coloring videos, sound design on videos and stuff like that, learning about how to use cameras. And
have you done courses in that, or is that just something you've picked up as you've been going along?
No, like everything I can do in life, it's mostly self-taught. So that's another. When I started doing this, my videos, it's like I shot them on a potato or something, or a Game Boy. They look terrible. But now it's my job now, right? So I have to invest a lot of time in what I think sets videos apart, right? To me, my videos are just like mini TV shows now. I'll try to set the scene. There's a bit of a story, beginning, middle, and end. And yeah, add a bit of B-roll in there with some nice shots of the food, which people like to see, and make it look as professional as I can.
So are you going in with like multiple cameras here at the same time and recording on multiple cameras, or?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention. I'm moving actually to an actual dedicated filming studio right now, so I've been trying to build all that and soundproof.
Telling me,
stuff. Yeah. But yeah, the reason for that is just to do more ambitious stuff. So right now I shoot with pretty much 2 cameras, and I just bought a third camera, which that cost me like 5,000 quid. I've got buyer's remorse, but yeah, I want to try and do more. I've got a drone as well, which I've been using a lot lately. So just to try and pad it out and make things. I don't think very many people just want to watch somebody put a bunch of food on a table and eat it, So I try and make it a little bit more episodic and more like a story. But yeah, that entails buying lots of expensive equipment a lot of the time. Which
is fun, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I like having things that I'm always trying to learn stuff. I hate the idea of being comfortable and not ever learning things. So to me, buying, it's like a hobby to me, but one that's part of. I mean, the more I do it, the better my videos become. So like learning about cameras, I didn't necessarily need to do it. I was earning a good enough living when my videos were pretty simple. But you always want to be trying to do new things. You don't want to just recreate the same thing over and over again. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I was trying to get it all in before the end of the tax year to make business deductible. But I'm done with spending now for a while.
I think it's one of them worlds where it's very easy to spend. There's lots of gadgets, isn't there? There's lots of fucking gadgets,
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, having said that, though, I'm sure you interact with a lot of people in the have fitness channels. That's a huge part of YouTube. And a lot of people on there now they're not just doing talking head stuff. They'll do a lot of kind of. I remember I did a video with. I've done a couple with Eddie Hall, actually, former World's Strongest Man Eddie Hall, and he's always got a bit of an entourage of people filming him. So it's fun to talk about creative stuff with them. They've always got nice cameras and stuff like that. So yeah, I think everyone's trying to level it up, because YouTube used to be, just a guy filming on his iPhone or whatever, but now it's more like that's how people consume content. The closer you make it look to a TV or movie production quality, the more you're going to stand out. So that's really all it is.
No, it's very impressive. Very impressive. Well, Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and giving us a huge insight into the world of competitive eating, which I think is something not many people know much about. UK-wise, I'm going to finish with one final question. UK-wise, are there any eating challenges in the UK that you are still to face that you think are pretty good? Or are they all pretty average?
No, they're typically in the UK, they go from either they're reasonably small and for me easy, or people just do ridiculous things to get newspapers to come by it and cover their restaurant or whatever. But there is one which hasn't, I don't think has been defeated yet. And it's tough to talk about because you don't know what restaurants are going to reopen right in May. I don't know how well people are doing. Hopefully that all the independents reopen in good shape. But I think there's a place called Black's Burgers. I think it's down south somewhere, and they do this thing called the Beast Burger, which I think is nobody's finished it yet, but it's like an 11-pound burger, which is
just that's a lot. Burger.
Yeah, one large. It looks really cool.
I think I've seen it.
Yeah, but what makes it a little bit irritating to me is that they put, in addition to that, they pad it out with about 3 pounds of fries, and you're thinking, oh, come on, man. Like it's going to be, if you finish the burger, most people, you're going to have to be very elite or in very, very good shape. I'd have to be going into a really important contest to have a chance at doing that. And even then, I'm going to feel terrible, for the hours after that, especially because it's down. I'd have to get a hotel, stay there for about 2 days to recover. So I think maybe I'll just go down and I'll eat the burger and just be like, forget the fries. But that's the one I would like to do. I think that I haven't done yet.
Well, I look forward to seeing the video of that one.
You have to come. You can lend me a hand, Phil. I think you can actually. I think you win a cash prize if you do it by yourself. I think if you do it in team of 2, you don't get a cash prize, but you get the meal free. So if you're ever down there,
if you're down this neck of the woods, once everything's reopened again, I will more than happily come and do a little eating challenge with you. I like a bit of food. I will probably fall sadly by the wayside in some kind of cold meat sweat, but I'll give it a good stab. But yeah, that will be good. We'll grab some food and. We won't do it terribly leisurely. We'll hammer it, but we'll give it a go. Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and we will speak soon.